you come to Kvarner, treat yourself to an experience you will remember. Enjoy the luxurious ambience. Experience superior service. Indulge in endless pleasures. The pearl of the tourism offer in the pearl of the Adriatic. Liburnia, Hotels and Villas.
Welcome along then to the Autodromo di Vallelunga, where we are about to take the first steps in the American Festival of Rome, the 5th and 6th rounds of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Fans already flocking in. Even though it's not quite 10 a.m. local time, we already have a healthy number of spectators around the circuit getting ready for qualifying for the NASCAR machinery. EuroNASCAR back here at Vallelunga, a popular part of the annual calendar here at this circuit just outside Rome. We've already had plenty of festivities this weekend. One of the most prominent and most unique of them, a trip just south from the circuit to the Campagnano di Roma, the little town just, I'd say, about 5-10 kilometers away from the circuit, if that. And if you may have seen this on the EuroNASCAR social medias, the cars went down into the town along with their drivers, and a brilliant and unique opportunity for the fans to get up close and personal with the cars and the stars of the series. And certainly a beautiful backdrop as well, Campagnano di Roma, and it was a very nice atmosphere to kick off a weekend of racing that's sure to be exciting. The circuit well suited to delivering us racing action. And look at that, some local gelato being sampled as well by social media Lou, as well as Liam Hazemans. We can let Liam off. He's had a good start to his season so far. But really a wonderful opportunity for the fans to see this spectacle up close and personal. And we are very much looking forward to bringing the local fans and those that have travelled from afar some exciting action. Of course, once we get into the meat of the weekend, there will be fans from all over Italy and beyond, especially those with a passion for American cars. But what a special sight it was to see a piazza full of Euro NASCAR machinery. So then the circuit awaits our drivers. It will be qualifying for EuroNASCAR Pro in just a few minutes' time, due to get started at 9 o'clock on the dot. This Vallelunga circuit, which we can see here from above, very technical and challenging. It's just under 4.1 kilometers in length, just a shade under 2.6 miles. And as you can see, all manner of different types of corner. It's very fast and flowing through the first sector, gets increasingly more tight until you exit turn 13 of this 14 corner lap. The final sector feels like a go-kart track almost at points, and the last corner feels rather like a slightly underbanked short oval as well. It is certainly a study in contrast, this circuit. I think a very difficult circuit to set up for as well, because you need a wildly different car to be at your absolute maximum through the first 3 corners compared to the last 3 corners. So it should be a very exciting weekend of action here. And those that have experience of the circuit, I would suggest, are probably those with the greatest advantage. Of course, experience always an advantage, but I feel like around this circuit in particular, that advantage is more pronounced. Of course, Alberto Nasca, who will be out in EuroNASCAR 2. He is a driver with plenty of experience here, not just in the EuroNASCARs, but in national Italian competition before, and our EuroNASCAR regulars, those that have been a part of the championship for a long time, they will have a good amount of mileage under the belt around this circuit. We're just a few minutes away from seeing the cars head out onto the circuit then, and the EuroNASCAR Pro qualifying will be first out. At the moment, of course, in EuroNASCAR Pro, it is Gianmarco Ercoli who leads the way, 137 points for the Italian racer. He was on form on Friday. Ercole fastest of anybody across the 2 free practice sessions. In fact, for the 54 Cal Racing machine in general, it was a banner day because Alberto Nasca was quickest among the EuroNASCAR 2 drivers as well. So that car looking like the perennial front runner this weekend. But there you see the standings. Gianmarco Ercole at the top. Leclerc and Kumpen within 6 points. So still very much closing in, or still very much in contention coming into this one. Mark Goossens, through sheer consistency there in 4th ahead of Martin Dubek. Vittorio Gorelli could do with a clean weekend here. He is tied 5th, but technically 6th alongside Martin Dubek there. And yes, certainly the championship standings pointing to an exciting season. Giorgio Maggi leading the juniors on 110 points, but he is obviously, as he has mentioned numerous times this season already, a lot more focused on the overall championship battle. And then you have Fabrizio Armetta leading the Challenger Trophy, also 10th overall at the moment, and leading Challenger by about 17 points over Advait Dioda, down in 16th overall. So there's a big gap there in favour of Fabrizio Armetta. So then our drivers are now heading down towards the red light at the end of the pit lane, which will go green in just a few seconds. And then it will be qualifying for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. The Goose is going to be the first one out onto the circuit. Mark Goossens getting himself ready there to head out onto the circuit. It will be a 20-minute qualifying session, followed by a top 10 shootout for the Super Pole drivers. So to get into Super Pole, you need to be in the top 10. We often see, with the competitive nature of this EuroNASCAR Pro field, it's almost inevitable, really, that there'll be at least one surprise each and every time coming out of Super Pole or coming into Super Pole. There's always at least one driver who you'd think would be there but didn't quite make the cut, and that's because any given weekend there are upwards of a dozen drivers, if not more, who you could certainly make an argument for being race winners. One surprise package to keep an eye on is Paul Giffreau, who has taken over the seat of the number 3 RDV competition car from Frédéric Gabillon. Frédéric deciding to step back for numerous reasons. Has not had the most competitive start to the 2023 season, also wanting to try and preserve some budget, and has decided to hand the seat over to Paul Giffreau, although I understand Gabillon's still very much an active part of the team, and that very much includes coaching Giffreau. The highly experienced Frédéric Gabillon, certainly a valuable asset in the garage then for Paul Giffreau, but Giffreau already showing top 5 pace within EuroNASCAR Pro. Of course, we've seen Giffreau up there at the sharp end in EuroNASCAR 2, led his first laps in EuroNASCAR 2 at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit at the American Speed Fest last month. And we'll be now looking to build upon that in this qualifying session. So we'll soon start to see the first flying laps. Drivers just approaching the end of their green flag lap at the moment. There is the 88 car just running through shot, just following at the moment the number 56. '88 car, another of the Cal Racing entries. Massimilio Lanza and Roberto Benedetti sharing that one across the 2 categories. It's Massimilio Lanza in the car for EuroNASCAR Pro, of course. Yeah, a little puff of smoke there from Lanza. I don't know if that was tyre rub, potentially. But this circuit, definitely one that has showcased some exciting racing in EuroNASCAR before. They've already gone through the first few corners. Of course, that corner they're just exiting now is Campagnano, funny enough, the one that faces south towards Campagnano di Roma. The corner they're going through at the moment is Sorretta. I should say Serrat, Trinchea, and Semaforo next. We're now into the final sector of the lap. And as you can see, it really does tighten up here as you approach this hairpin known as Tormentino. Get the power down, and then the S's await. They are literally just called S's. And it just gets a bit wider on the exit of the S's as well, which is probably a blessing for some of the drivers in these big stock cars. And the final turn is known as Roma, again pointing south down towards Rome. And this is the American Festival of Rome here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Goossens then first driver across the line in the session. And we'll wait to see a time. 1:42.567 the time for Mark Goossens. So Goossens with the early benchmark. Here is Gianmarco Ercole, still getting some heat through the tyres at the moment. So Ercole in the 54. Just trying to get some heat into the Hoosiers at this stage. Looks like he's still on an outlap, so it seems as though Coley has joined the session a little bit late. Maybe that's just a showing of supreme confidence, and based on his pace in FP1 and FP2 on Friday, I can fully understand why there is a lot of confidence there. Fast laps coming in for the first time then. Certainly not everybody showing their true potential on their first registered lap. But Goossens has set the early benchmark, a 1:42.567. Lanza's time of 42.778. I expect them to get into the 41s before the end of the session. Across the line comes Gianmarco Ercole. He will now start what I believe is his first proper flying lap around this circuit. Curva Grande, he's just gone through there. That is a white knuckle ride in just about any machinery, but I think particularly in these big stock cars. Ercole heading down to the Campagnano corner now. This is a good overtaking opportunity once they do go racing. And one of the things that makes it particularly compelling for our interest, maybe not so much for the drivers, but if you do run side by side through this corner, you then head immediately into another braking zone, and then things can get particularly hairy with retaliation and moves in immediate response. Always very exciting. There is the number 18 of Giorgio Maggi. Maggi running around the circuit at the moment. Doesn't look like the quickest lap for him. However, we have had a new fastest time at the top of the timing sheets, and that is Tobias Dauenhauer, a 1:40.760, the lap time for Tobias Dauenhauer. So just about a quarter of a second quicker than Liam Hasemans, who's also set his first proper flying lap. So much for getting into the 1:41s. They're already into the 1:40s. High 39s would be a very good lap around this circuit. We'll have to see if anyone can do that before the end of the session. Of course, Dauenhauer in the 99 car that debuted last time at Brands Hatch, the new German team Promotion, making its bow in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Vittorio Garelli goes top, a 1:40.619 for Vittorio Garelli on home turf. The number 72 Blake Molan entry. We are looking here at Anthony Kumpen and then Paul Giuffreau. So Paul Giuffreau, as we mentioned, taking this seat from Frédéric Gabillon. He now runs the number 3 car across both categories, does the young Frenchman Paul Giffreau, who's really come into his own since moving to RDV competition. And the latest step in that process is seeing him here in the EuroNASCAR Pro Series, not just racing, but definitely holding his own as well. Paul Giffreau currently 4th fastest around the circuit, the 4th and final driver to be in a sub 141 at the moment. Giffreau pressing on here. New fastest time on the board, and it belongs to Liam Hazeman's, a 140.540 for the EuroNASCAR 2 champion of 2022. Drivers starting to run out of time here to set quick times. We see there Ercole in the 54. He's rather held up Giffreau there. And he was slow. Hopefully that's just him trying to find some track space, not having a problem, but still not really picked up the speed as he goes through the S's. Now it looks like he might be accelerating. Coley only in 6th place with a 141.335. Again, top 10 go through to Superpole. I wouldn't be overly comfortable in that position right now. I think really you want to be in the top 5 as the clock strikes 0 to just be sure, because of course late improvements can and often do come. One factor that perhaps encourages drivers to play the game of doing as few laps as possible is of course the fact that these tyres on the cars have to do both races as well as this qualifying session and potentially Superpole if you get that far. Once we're into the competitive phase of the weekend, they have one set of Hoosier rubber to work with. Anthony Kumpen, currently I would say the biggest name outside the top 10. 12th fastest right now on a 141.854. Martin Dubeck also not in the top 10. Sebastian Blakemolen, Mark Goossens, all of those names not there in the top 10 right now. It's very much a story of the young guard, really, at the sharp end of the order. Hazeman's in the lead, Vittorio Garelli, who is a little bit more experienced, but still relatively young. Tobias Dowenhauer, Paul Giffreau, Giorgio Maggi, all very young drivers. In some cases just barely 20, in some cases just under 20, but it seems like a bit of a youth movement here this weekend at the moment. Lucas Lasset, who came into Brands Hatch as the championship leader. You remember winning that second race at Valencia put him into the championship lead going into the American Speed Fest in June. Valencia initially was supposed to be a one-off, but a bona fide championship contender still coming into the Vallelunga round. Seems as though Lasser is now committed for the season. He runs 7th fastest at the moment. Vladimiros Siortsis, who is traditionally one of the most impressive qualifiers of all in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. He's currently only 8th fastest as well. There's a few surprise packages, it must be said. Across the line goes the 55 car. I believe that is the 55. Nope, my apologies. That's a 65 of Romagnoli, who is all the way up in 12th place at the moment. And we've just had an improvement for Mark Goossens. Goossens goes 10th fastest with a 141.840. So with 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go, Goossens is just about within range of getting into Superpole, but there's a long way to go just yet. I rather suspect that we are yet to see the best out of a few drivers here. Surely the likes of Kumpen have something else in the pocket. Vladimiros Siortsis goes through the S's and towards turn 14. Roma to complete another lap. Let's see if this lap is the golden ticket that Vladimiros Tsiotsis will want. Tsiotsis out of the final corner. His time, a 1:41.476, is his best. His last lap was a tenth or so off, and oh goodness me, a wheel or two off there, coming out of Curva Grande as well. Very tricky corner to get right. You have to be exactly right on the racing line. If you stray wide, you have to take a great many precautions to not end up on the grass. Martin Dubek still down in 15th. He's running just behind the number 5 car on circuit at the moment, and he doesn't seem to be able to find any more. Also seems that we've hit the barrier in terms of lap time. We're in the 1:41s in free practice. Liam Hasemans has managed to find a 1:40.540. And since he found that lap time getting on for 10 minutes ago, no one has come close. Just a few more opportunities then. 45 seconds to go. Once the clock hits 0, of course, you are on your final lap of the session. There is the 48 car in the hands of the returning Thomas Pontonen. Pontonen currently 14th position. What can he get out of this one? Not an improvement by the looks of it. Remains 14th. Just 15 seconds left on the clock as he also tests the limits of the curbs and the grass. Cam Pontonen returned to the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series with an appearance in the Super Pole session. We'll have to wait and see. This, of course, the car that Yevgen Sokolovsky raced at Brands Hatch. Yevgen not with us this weekend, but I think there's a chance we see him again before the end of the season. '48 car continuing on. Clock has hit 0 then. Are there any late improvements? Anthony Kumpen has just set a 1:41.558, so Kumpen has dropped Mark Goossens out of Super Pole at the moment. Kumpen 10th fastest, so he's currently on the cusp. If anyone gets into the top 10, that will be Kumpen out of Super Pole. For now, though, it seems as though improvements are getting hard to come by. I think partly because of the heat. I understand we're expecting temperatures minimum 50, probably over 60 degrees Celsius in the cockpit of these cars. Out of the final corner goes the 48. Ulysse Delso, who is 9th fastest on our timing screens at the moment for Speedhouse, heads out of the hairpin and through the S's. Did we get an improvement at the end of that lap from Pontonen? No, we didn't. Can Delso move up? He should be safe in the Super Pole session. It doesn't look like we're going to have too many improvements from outside the top 10. Unless there is a surprise package just around the corner. Ulysse Delso crosses the line for his final lap in the session. Looks as though he will remain in 9th place. Did it go quicker though, or didn't go quicker on his final lap? A 1:41.499 remains his best. He was a couple of tenths off his best in that session. Just waiting to see if there's anybody else due across the line, but it very much looks like it will be Liam Hasemans who goes into the Super Pole session with all of the momentum. I believe just about everybody has taken the flag. It's Liam Hasemans with a 1:40.540 who tops this qualifying session. Gorelli second with his 1:40.619. Tobias Downhauer and Paul Dufresne third and fourth. Giorgio Maggi in the 18, fifth, ahead of Gianmarco Ercoli, only 6th, but that's good enough. Vladimir Osiortsis, 7th, Lucas Lasser, 8th, and the top 10 rounded out by Ulysse Delceau and Anthony Kumpen, who did just enough to stay in Superpole. Mark Goossens, one of the higher profile names to be knocked out of the top 10 shootout. He will start 11th in the race ahead of Neo Lambert. Riccardo Romagnoli, 13th. Thomas Pontonen, 14th. Martin Dubek down in 15th. That's a surprise, as is the driver who'll join him on the 8th row of the grid, Sebastian Bleekemolen, only 16th fastest. Bleekemolen has been a top 10, if not top 5 runner for most of the season so far. And that hasn't translated for the driver of the 69 in this one. Fabrizio Armetta in the 55, 17th, Max Lanza 18th, Chrysonis 19th, Advet Dioda in 20th, Thomas Tuffel in 21st, Atiennes 22nd in the 27 car, Balistreri in the 38 is 23rd fastest, Fleury in the 75, 24th, Loretti, Panagiotis and Alina Leubnegger rounding out the 27 cars that took that qualifying session. But the top 10 will move on now to the Superpole, which will come in just a few moments' time. It's a shootout session for the drivers. Just a few minutes for them to try and set a lap time. It is going to be a short and sharp session, as always in the Superpole. Will be just 5 minutes in length, which should mean maybe 2 flying laps, as long as they get out there quickly. I think 3 is just about mathematically possible, but it does require the laps of your life, including the outlap. It's certainly interesting to see some returning and new faces on the grid. One of the cars we saw out there on circuit in the hands of Hugo Fleury, the 75 Uber Modern racing car, the French outfit, making its debut in EuroNASCAR this weekend. Of course, we've got the continued adventures of promotion, the German team, just Tobias Downhauer at the wheel this weekend. And then you've got the likes of Thomas Pontonen coming back into the series again. Great to see Pontonen back. Jack Davidson will also be at the wheel of the Marco Stipp Motorsport 48 car when we go into EuroNASCAR 2. There you see Liam Hasemans in the number 50. The Hendricks Motorsport number 50 driver who made his car racing debut just over a year ago in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, was well versed in karting before that. And looks like Downhauer there got overtaken in the pit lane by Vittorio Gorelli. That was a fairly simple but effective maneuver there from Gorelli. And as we see the number 50 car charge off, I do just want to say as well, one thing we saw in the aftermath of last weekend was a few photos showcasing Liam Hasemans' time in karting. Not just his time in karting, but also his friendship with the late Delano Van Toff, who of course sadly lost his life last weekend at Spa. And I know that the thoughts of Liam Hasemans, a lot of the other youngsters in the NASCAR paddock, and just generally the motorsport community with the friends and family of Delano Van Toff, those who come from the Belgian and Dutch motorsport scenes, the likes of Anthony Kumpen, And Mark Goosens would no doubt know Delano through Father Alex, who was a racing driver in his own right. I'm sure that Liam Hazelmans has the idea in his mind this weekend of paying tribute to his friend with the best performance he can muster out of the Hendricks Motorsport number 50. Just hearing that Tobias Downhauer had to yield there to Vittorio Gorelli because they came towards the pit exit or in the wrong order. There is a set order for the exit of pit lane ahead of Superpole, which is obviously the order that they were in at the end of the main qualifying session. So Gorelli was obligated to get around the 99 car, which he did in quite a svelte fashion. There is Gorelli. Goes through the Curva Grande. Look at how close they are to the limit. He's actually quite smooth there. Managed to avoid challenging the outer curb and the grass. It should be 2 flying laps of just about everybody then. And let's see if anyone can upset Liam Hazelmans. Of course, it was Gorelli. It was Gianmarco Ercoli who was quickest in the free practice sessions yesterday morning. The question will be, can Gorelli muster up some pace in this Superpole that we didn't see in the main qualifying session? Because in the qualifying, he was just 6th fastest. Now, was he preserving the best of his tyres for this Superpole session? Has he got something in the back pocket? So that's what we're going to have to watch out for from the 54 car. Meanwhile, Hazelmans and then Gorelli coming through the final sector. Hazelmans will be the first one to put a lap down. We'll have to see what his time is. We saw a 40.5 out of him in the qualifying session. Can he match that in Superpole? What can Vittorio Gorelli do in this number 72 car? The Team Blake Molan entry heading across the line now. We'll get the time through in just a few seconds. Gorelli a 140.838. He's the fastest. Liam Hazelmans only a 141.725, so I think he may have made a mistake. Gianmarco Ercoli with a 140.543. Okay, yes, Ercoli definitely had something in the back pocket. Ercoli almost exactly matches the time of Hazelmans in the main qualifying session, just 0.003 of a second off the time that we saw from the young Dutchman in the previous session. I'm keen to see what Hazelmans is doing on this lap. This will be, I believe, his final opportunity to set a flyer, although he might get another go. That's one thing we would ideally see, whether or not Hazelmans gets another flying lap or not. He should be in the final section of corners right now. I think he might just get another lap. It's going to be touch and go. The moment is Ercoli and Gorelli, the two pace setters, the two drivers under a 141. It's Gianmarco Ercoli currently sitting on provisional pole, but what is Liam Hazelmans doing? He should be towards the final corner now. Can he match the performance that we had out of him in the main qualifying session? Doesn't look like we're going to get a look, so we're going to have to watch the timing screens here to see whether Hazelmans can find a faster time. It was a 141.725 that he set in the first flying lap. I don't think he's getting another opportunity. I think everyone is taking the checkered flag this time. The timing screen is late to update, but it was a 141.1 for Hazelmans, so he improved, but only to 5th place. Can anyone beat Gianmarco Ercoli's time, including Ercoli himself? It appears not. A 140.543 seems to be the best time that anyone has set. Have we had any improvements on the final lap? We have. Tobias Downhauer has moved up to a 140.884. Paul Giffreau also improving on his final lap of 141.009. But on the first flying lap of Superpole, Gianmarco Ercole did everything that he needed to do and will come out of the Superpole session as the fastest driver, as the pole sitter. So Gianmarco Ercole continuing the run of form that we saw from him in free practice and will be on pole position going into the first race later on today in EuroNASCAR Pro. The championship leader, who was crowned the king of Brands Hatch with a pair of victories the American Speedfest last month, continues that hot run of form with pole position in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series once again at the NASCAR Grand Prix of Italy. I'm sure Ercole will be happy with that beginning to his season, or to his weekend, I should say. He will be happy with his beginning to the season as well. The clash with Hasemans at Valencia notwithstanding, he's done just about everything perfectly so far this year. Of course, the Hasemans collision at Valencia, Hasemans was judged to be at fault by just about everybody, including himself. But the two have reconciled after some harsh words exchanged in interviews in the immediate aftermath at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. But still very much title rivals, although Liam Hasemans needs a good weekend here to still be a potential title contender. Fifth fastest is not a bad showing for Hasemans, certainly. But currently sitting 11th in the points, despite being a race winner, Liam Hasemans, and I'm sure he feels that more is possible, more should be possible for the driver who won the first race of the season. Last year's EuroNASCAR 2 champion has had a mixed bag so far when it comes to his form in the EuroNASCAR Pro category. But Gianmarco Ercole is our pole sitter, a 140.543, the time that secures him pole position. Garelli, Downhauer and Giffreau will join him on the front two rows of the grid. Of course, a few of these drivers, including Giffreau, including Vladimir Osiortsis, who qualified sixth, will be out in the next session as well, the qualifying for the EuroNASCAR 2 category, where Siortsis is, of course, our points leader by a significant margin at the moment. Siortsis is yet to lose a race in EuroNASCAR in EuroNASCAR 2 this season. 3 poles and 4 wins so far for Vladimir Osiortsis. Alberto Nasca, the only other driver to have taken a pole position, but no victories so far for Nasca. He'll be looking to rectify that on home turf, 21 points back from Vladimir Osiortsis at the moment. We'll see if the Cypriot sensation Vladimir Osiortsis can continue his run of form in EuroNASCAR 2 in just a few minutes. Cars due out onto the circuit in just a little while. We'll also see whether the likes of Paul Giffreau in his first weekend double dipping in EuroNASCAR Pro and EuroNASCAR 2, we'll see whether that extra time on the track can benefit him. Some drivers prefer not to spend themselves across both categories. Others like the track time. It all depends what you're aiming towards, how good your cardiovascular conditioning is. And certainly in the heat here at the Vallelunga circuit, they need that conditioning. It's already very, very warm, well up into the 20s. Last time I looked at the temperatures here at the Autodromo di Vallelunga. And that means it is extra toasty and will only get worse as the day goes on for the drivers in the cockpits. Certainly, in EuroNASCAR Pro, it's a brilliant start to the campaign for Gianmarco Ercole. Reminder, he is just 4 points clear of Lucas Lasser in the championship. So Lasser still very much on his back, but Lucas only qualifying 8th fastest. The man who's 3rd in the championship points, Anthony Kumpen, he only managed to qualify 10th there. So pole sitter Gianmarco Ercole, this could be a very strong weekend for him with his closest championship rivals falling rather far back. And it has been a story of Ercole being the only one to be consistent and up at the sharp end. Because Lasser, yes, he's been consistent, but he's not quite had race-winning performance everywhere. He's only had 2 top 5s. Of course, didn't quite have the same performance at Brands as he did at Valencia. Anthony Kumpen, he's had a bit of a mixed bag of fortunes. Mark Goossens, he's only had 1 top 5, but out of sheer consistency, he finds himself 4th in the championship and 22 points back from our series leader. The likes of Giorgio Maggi, who's had problems with the car, Sebastian Blakemolen, who's had good pace but had issues at Valencia, Vittorio Gorelli as well. All of these drivers are people would expect to be up there on pace with Gianmarco Ercole, but the luck hasn't been there with them. Liam Hazeman's, of course, the biggest example outside the championship top 10 at the moment. Did hear that we'll soon be down with Andre Viegold, and we are now going to go down to Andre.
He has a natural resistance because he's from Rome, the local hero on pole position. How was it?
Yeah, I'm very happy to take the pole position here in my home track. So it's very important. It's much important this point. Take the pole and command all the row. I'm happy. The team yesterday doing a very good job for a good car in qualifying. Now it's difficult the race for the hot temperature, but I think all race, poor racing. I'm happy. I'm waiting only for the race.
There are always already a lot of fans waiting to get some autographed pictures. How do you enjoy your home race here today?
Yeah, this year is incredible. The atmosphere here in Vallelunga. Congratulations to the Autodromo Vallelunga for the job and for the event, because it's much important to arrive here with a lot of fans for the continue of the season.
All right, grazie mille, congratulations, thank you so much. And we go back to Adam.
Great to hear then from Gianmarco Ercole, very much in his home postcode this weekend at the Autodromo di Vallelunga, and has already been lapping up that home venue excitement. Of course, last year, if you were watching EuroNASCAR, you may remember that Ercole came into some strife here at Vallelunga. Found a stray piece of bodywork at Curva Grande, ran it over, and the car was significantly damaged by that. It was one of the pendulum swings in favour, ultimately, of Alan Day come the end of the year. And we now go back down to Andre.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm here with another local hero, Vittorio Gorelli. You were very fast in qualifying, and you know the track very well, right?
Yeah, I know the track very well. It was a good qualifying for the Super Pole. I was down 3 times actually in the last lap, but then I started losing the rear and the tires. Maybe pressures were going too up. Also the heat was going up. So yeah, maybe wrong strategy again, like in Brands Hatch, but we're always close. So front row anyway is a good starting position, and we try to get him in race 1, you know. It's a long race, a lot of heat, so anything can happen. The important is that we always put pressure and stay there, you know.
You told me that you started your racing career here at Autodromo di Vallelunga. What did you do when you were young here?
Basically, I got the license for racing in this track with the 4 days trial to get the license, and yeah, it's my home race. I will have a lot of fans coming to join me, so yeah, I want to do a good result for me and for the team and for the fans watching and coming to support, you know.
All right, grazie mille, congratulations. And I'm going to find a shadow place right now for the EuroNASCAR 2 qualifying. Back to you, Adam.
Yes, shade is an ideal situ, I think, Andre. In these conditions, you see some of the fans hydrating. The locals don't mess around. 2-litre bottles and up when it comes to the water supply in the grandstand. Interesting to hear just how critical of a venue this is to Vittorio Girelli's career then. The very place he first became a racing license holder. Remains just 25 points off of the championship lead at the moment. So we'll have to see whether Girelli can get the pendulum to swing his way a little bit. One of 3 Italians in the top 10 of the championship. Of course, Gianmarco Ercoli being the other at the sharp end. And then you've got Fabrizio Armetta, 10th in the championship right now and leading the Challengers Trophy. I think you can see there some autographs being signed by, I believe, Girelli, as you get a look at some of the fan experience facilities here at the Autodromo di Vallelunga. As always is the case with the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, I'm sure that there are plentiful American machinery out there on circuit and almost perfectly on cue. You see there the Chevy Corvette C7. Looks to me like a ZR1 potentially. No, it's a Z06. Just got to look at the badge there on the side of the car. The American car clubs local to Vallelunga and local to Rome will no doubt be here in force, especially as the weekend rolls on into the racing action and on Sunday. And you see merchandise on sale as well from teams from EuroNASCAR as a whole. See some double V racing representation in there as well. And a round of applause being given on the grandstand. I think that may well be in the direction of Gianmarco Ercoli. And conversation ongoing there at the official merch stand. I believe we'll soon see the EuroNASCAR 2 machinery out there on circuit. They are due out on the track in, well, actually, as we speak. And sure enough, yes, they are. So 9:40 UK, 10:40 here at the Autodromo di Vallelunga. The car's out right on schedule. And we now begin qualifying for EuroNASCAR 2. A reminder, there is no Super Pole in EuroNASCAR 2. It's a straight 20-minute qualifying session. Getting some information from photographer Bart down in the pits saying that we do have a technical issue for Nicholas Strickler. So Nicholas Strickler in the 94 for Racing Fuel Motorsport. Carburetor issue for him. Car yet to have the driver in it, so they're still working hard down at Racing Fuel to get Nicholas Strickler out there. Let's hope that they succeed in doing so. There's the 66 of Thomas Dombrowski, the junior trophy runner. And I think just saying runner, a little bit reductive. Front runner in the rookie trophy. Thomas Dombrowski, currently 6th in the overall championship in EuroNASCAR 2. So keep an eye on that number 66 from the Blake & Molen stable, because in EuroNASCAR 2, we should expect to see it on the first few rows of the grid, really. Although Dombrowski is yet to take a top 5 finish this season. 3 top 10s, but no top 5s just yet for Dombrowski. A good qualifying position here will no doubt yield benefits later on. His closest competition in the EuroNASCAR 2 rookie category, the rookie trophy, is Jack Davidson. Now, Davidson has had a mixed season, to put it lightly. You'll no doubt remember the huge collision Davidson suffered along with Patrick Schauber at the American Speed Fest a few weeks ago. Both drivers walked away from a mighty shunt. And Davidson will be looking for a consistent weekend. He had strife at Valencia, he had strife at Brands Hatch. Let's see if Vallelunga fares better. Davidson, I think, pretty much a first-time racer around every circuit other than Brands, so he'll be looking to land on his feet around the near 4.1 kilometre Autodromo di Vallelunga circuit. There is Alberto Nasca. Of course, he's got the red banner on his car, but he's not the points leader. The red banner is there because of Gianmarco Ercole, who leads in EuroNASCAR Pro. Alberto Nasca currently second in the EuroNASCAR 2 standings, of course, behind Vladimiros Tsiotsis. Nasca very much on home turf this weekend. Is going to be looking to excel and exceed Vladimiros Tsiotsis if at all possible. And keep an eye on Paul Giffreau as well. Giffreau, who's just behind Nasca there on circuit. Of course, benefiting this weekend from increased track time, now running in EuroNASCAR Pro as well. Nasca with the early benchmark then, a 1:41.204. As Giffreau kicking up the grass. If you spend enough time there at Curva Grande, you become very desensitized to two wheels on the grass, because that is often the line that's taken here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Through Campagnano corner goes Giffreau. A much smoother run out of Campagnano than Nasca, who we saw going very, very wide indeed. It looks like he's fighting the car a little bit more. That was certainly a hallmark of Alberto Nasca, particularly in the early stages of his NASCAR Whelen Euro Series career. I remember commentating on his first session as a EuroNASCAR driver, qualifying at Valencia last year, and he was sideways everywhere. I think tyre preservation has become a little bit more of a keen factor for the YouTube sensation in recent times, but certainly still a very showman driver, a very entertaining driver to watch, a flamboyant driver, that's the phrase I was looking for, and not afraid of his right foot, to put it lightly. Nasca has crossed the line again, just waiting to see if that time has improved at all. 41.204, still his fastest time, so I don't know if there was an improvement. It was a 1:41.080 for Nasca, so he's improved, but Paul Giffreau on a 1:40.998, he's now the fastest in the session, so Giffreau in the number 3 has improved. I'm getting the lap times a few seconds delayed here in the commentary box, but Giffreau the first in the session to go under a 1:41. So that extra mileage maybe paying off a little bit there for the number 3, as the number 69 car in the hands of Melvin de Groot, who made his first run of the season at Brands Hatch after missing Valencia. He'll be looking to weasel his way back into the lead of the Legend Trophy. Potentially could do so with a good weekend here at Vallelunga. We always expect de Groot to be somewhere in the top 10 as well in the overall classification, if not the top 5 if he's on particularly rare form. There is Patrick Schauber. Good to see Schauber back out there. Didn't get to compete on Sunday at Brands Hatch after the collision with Davidson on Saturday took the Double V racing car out of commission. Speaking of Davidson, I know that he has stopped just before the final sector. We just got a look at it there as we were looking at turn 11. In the back of shot, the 48 car has stopped. So Jack Davidson, who's only set one flying lap at 150.061, he is stopped out on circuit. Looks like a technical issue then for the 48 car. Down at, I believe it's turn 8, that the 48 car is stopped, and that's a huge shame for Davidson. Patrick Schauber has moved himself up to 4th at 142.190. So 1.3 seconds off the, or just over 1.2 seconds off the ultimate pace. However, still good enough for 4th position. Will those gaps narrow as the session goes on? You've got 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go. Of course, in EuroNASCAR 2, these cars are the same as the ones in EuroNASCAR Pro, not just in terms of specification, but in a lot of cases, literally the same chassis that we just saw running in the hands of another driver in EuroNASCAR Pro. So no difference in terms of potential performance, but it's effectively the Pro-Am version of EuroNASCAR. As we see there, another car stop from the Blake-Molen machines. I think that might have been the 72 pulled up of Mikael Blake-Molen. So there's Davidson's car in the back of shot, and there is the 69, the 72 as well. So Blake-Molen and Davidson, almost in the same shot, have both pulled up. One at the exit of turn 8, another at the exit of turn 10, as Vladimiros Tsiotsis, currently 3rd fastest, on a 141.311. We haven't seen the best of him yet. Here comes the number 1 car, meanwhile, of Max Mason. Does he improve? Currently 19th fastest. His last time, or his best time, a 145.109, and that last lap was a 145.001. So Mason does improve, but he's still down in 20th at the moment. Now, what about Vladimiros Tsiotsis? He's on a good first sector in the number 5 car. 13.423 is a little bit quicker than we've seen out of NASCAR. Curious to see whether Tsiotsis, of course, can continue that pole streak. We currently follow Max Mason in the number 1. But what of the number 5, the similarly liveried Academy Alex Caffey machine of Vladimiros Tsiotsis? The 34 of Tufel. Thomas Tufel heading down towards Campagnano at the moment. Tufel, of course, had a dramatic time of it, I think, at Brands Hatch. A spin at Graham Hill Bend at one point, a few other dramas, but bounced back nicely. Eight minutes and 45 seconds left in the session, and the benchmark is still with Paul Dufresne, a 140.998. He is on an outlap. He's just been back in the pits, as has Alberto Nasca. I think a few teams opting to do mid-session tyre pressure changes. Of course, one thing that's interesting with the number 72 car of Blake-Molen seemingly stopped out there on circuit, one thing that's interesting is what that means for Vittorio Garelli. I'm sure the car will be back out there, but Garelli has had problems already this season, and I'm sure he won't love seeing or hearing that his car has stopped out on circuit in the hands of Mikael Blake-Molen. We saw Tefel there testing the outer limits around the final corner at Roma. Tefel currently 7th fastest, a 1:42.341, and well, that's not the racing line. Went very, very wide indeed. There's Vladimiros Tsiotsis. I've been keen to see what he is doing. At the moment, it looks like he's on a cool-down lap. Maybe just bringing everything back up to temperature. The current EuroNASCAR 2 points leader. Is he on an out lap? It doesn't appear that he is. I'll be very keen to stick with this lap and see what he can do as he now builds the pace back up. We'll go through turn 14 at Roma to begin this flyer. His best lap right now is a 1:41.311. Can he improve now as he breaks the timing beam to start a flying lap? The first corner of note is turn 2, Curva Grande. Full commitment into the corner. Try not to test the outside of the grass, but he does so there. Clip the inside grass as well before heading into the Kimini sequence of corners. Kimini 1 and 2, turns 4 and 5 on the circuit. Lots of runoff area and gravel through turn 6. Giuffro, meanwhile, going through Curva Grande. Campagnano is next for Tsiotsis as Giuffro goes through turns 4 and 5. He's got some company up ahead in the form of Nick Schneider in the 46. Schneider currently only 14th fastest. Keeping an eye on the sector split for Vladimiros Tsiotsis. Split 2. Wait and see when that comes through. He was a tenth or two down through the first sector, Tsiotsis. I think that's because of the wild run through Curva Grande. Meanwhile, other cars out on circuit. We see Giuffro still, of course, fastest in the session with this 1:40.998. Will he need to improve? Well, he goes back into the pits for now, so maybe he thinks not. Heading into the pit lane with 5 minutes to go tells me that he feels he's done enough. We'll have to see whether that proves to be true. NASCAR's last lap out on circuit, a 1:41.168, about a tenth off his personal best and a little under 2 tenths off the ultimate pace. So maybe Giuffro thinks that he's done enough. There's the number 9 car of Marzi. A brief look at that Vict Motorsport entry. Valerio Marzi, Simone Loretti racing the car in Pro, but Marzi currently 17th fastest, just behind the other Vict Motorsport car in the hands of Paolo Valeri. There is Alberto Nasca, and just behind him is Vladimiros Tsiotsis, by the looks of it, as Nasca there locking up the brake, going through turn 10, the hairpin at 11. The circuit very much changes character in the last few corners, doesn't it? There is the number 5 car, just following in the wheel tracks of NASCAR. Can either party improve? Both had a very good first sector and a solid second sector too. I'm interested to see whether their lap times will improve then. It will be a few seconds before it comes up on my timing screen. Will it be an improvement for NASCAR or Tsiotsis on that lap? I'm getting the impression it may not be. No, both of them only in the 1:41.3s, so both a couple of tenths off their ultimate best. With 3 minutes and 10 seconds to go, they are running out of time, and NASCAR ran wide there at 4 and 5. Now, he should lift out of the throttle, really, to not compromise Tsiotsis. That's exactly what he does. Spirited and fair driving there from NASCAR. So if we continue to follow Siortzis as he goes through Campagnano, the long right-hander. And he gets rather compromised there as well by the number 1 car on the exit of the corner. Couldn't run quite as wide as he'd want to. It was a strong first sector. I'm not quite sure this second sector is going to match up, though, for Vladimiros Siortzis. It's looked scrappy, to put it lightly. Going through the final few corners, lap traffic up ahead as well. Martin Dubek looks like he's just coming up to pace ahead of the number 5. I think he should stay out of the way of Siortzis. I don't think Siortzis will get up to the back of the number 7. Dubek currently 6th fastest in the session. We haven't really brought him up. But Siortzis just behind the number 7 car. Will we see an improvement from Vladimiros Siortzis? Dubek isn't on a flyer, so we don't need to worry too much about his progress. But what about Vladimiros Siortzis just behind him? Siortzis crossing the line. And we'll have to see what the time is. Just waiting for it to update. I think just a 1:42.0 from Siortzis. So yeah, no improvement there from Vladimiros. I think that one was rather lost in the second sector. Already on another flyer, though. Couple of tenths lost through the first sector and wide out of turn 5. I don't think this lap is going to be the improvement, the golden ticket either. A minute and 5 seconds left of this session. And it is Paul Giuffreau who is fastest at 1:40.998. I think that in these conditions, early lap times are imperative. Once the carcass of these Huggia tyres have had some heat through them and the tyre pressures build, it gets harder and harder to get quick lap times in. Tefel still looking for improvement. He's 8th fastest at the moment, just behind Claudio Remeggio Capelli, who's in 7th. So 30 seconds left on the clock and still no sign of anyone getting close to the performance of Paul Giuffreau. Oh, and that's wide for Thomas Tefel. Just snagged one of the brakes there, a bit too ambitious into Serrata. And didn't get the car stopped in time. Turn 8 of the lap proving to be the sticking point for Tefel, who will know the clock has hit 0. He may well come in at the end of that lap. Siortzis looking rapid there through the Cimini corners. Let's see if he can finally find the flying lap that he's been looking for. A decent but not world-beating first sector. The first sector only accounts for the first 13.5 seconds of the lap, though, so still lots of time for Siortzis. Will we see an improvement here on the very last lap from the man who has been the strangleholder over EuroNASCAR this year in EuroNASCAR 2? 3 poles, 4 wins, and I think he's backed off there. It looked as though that car stopped accelerating forward. Hopefully not a problem, just a choice for Siortzis, but I think he's backed out of this lap. Yes, he has. So then, for just the second time this season, Vladimiros Siortzis looks to have been beaten to pole position here in EuroNASCAR 2. Siortzis heading back into the pit lane. But it's not Alberto Nasca who has beaten him to pole position. Not the man we'd expect, not the home nation hero, but Paul Giuffreau, the driver of the number 3 car, has succeeded in claiming a pole position here in the EuroNASCAR 2 series after leading his first laps in the mixed conditions at Brands Hatch. on Speedfest Sunday. Paul Giffreau is now a EuroNASCAR 2 pole sitter. His first weekend doing a dual campaign across EuroNASCAR Pro and EuroNASCAR 2. We see there the 38 car entered under double T. Cesar Balestrieri running across both categories, EuroNASCAR Pro, EuroNASCAR 2. Balestrieri qualifying fairly well, actually. 13th fastest in the session. But it's Paul Giffreau who will claim pole position. Alberto Nasca will line up alongside him. Siortzis on the second row, along with Gil Linster. Patrick Schauber, 5th fastest alongside Martin Dubek. Claudio Remeggio Capelli, 7th. Thomas Tafel in 8th. Thomas Dombrowski in 9th. And Melvin de Groot rounding out our top 10 in that session. So certainly interesting signs coming out of that session, one of them being that Paul Giffreau has a handle over the Autodromo di Vallelunga. And that means that we can expect that number 3 car to be right up there when we go racing. He'll be alongside Alberto Nasca. Giffreau looking to establishing himself as a title contender in this weekend. Currently pretty high up the standings as well. Currently sits 3rd in the standings on 135 points. So your top 3 in the championship order are also your top 3 on the grid today, except they're in reverse order. Paul Giffreau 3rd in the championship in the number 3 car, but number 1 on the grid, and he's down with Andre.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm here with Paul Giffreau with his maiden pole award in his hands. So, how do you feel?
Not bad. No, I'm really happy. It was kind of exhausted to jump off the qualification of the pros and go to the EuroNASCAR 2. But yeah, we're happy. But it's amazing of the track change between the 2 sessions. You know, the car wasn't the same at all. The track took a lot of temperature, so we had to take the turns with no like the qualification in pro. This was every turn was new. And yeah, the team is just amazing. They gave me a car that turn everywhere, and it's just amazing. I don't have the word.
Merci beaucoup, congratulations and enjoy. And now we go back to Adam.
A massive congratulations to Paul Giffreau then. I think quite winded after 2 sessions in the car in these temperatures, and I'm sure that once he cools down, the magnitude of the achievement of his first EuroNASCAR 2 pole position will become more clear. So then that is the end of our qualifying running, though of course there is lots of action still to come today, starting at 2:15 local time with the EuroNASCAR Pro first race. We'll be broadcasting long before that, however. There's the number 72 car being towed back in. That is not what Mikael Bleekemolen would want from his session, and certainly not what Vittorio Girelli would have liked to have seen from his car in the EuroNASCAR 2 session either. It will be 1:20 local time that we go live with EuroNASCAR Pro and the festivities ahead of the first race. And I think I saw them pouring water on the Corvette. I'm not quite sure why. But that will be when we go live for the EuroNASCAR Pro first race. 18 laps of racing expected for them. And then, of course, we will wrap up the day at 5 o'clock local time, 5 o'clock Central European Summer, with the EuroNASCAR 2 race. And that will be 15 laps of racing. I'm sure that many of the eyes in the grandstands will be focused firmly on the efforts of the number 54 crew, be it Gianmarco Ercoli in EuroNASCAR Pro or Alberto Nasca in EuroNASCAR 2. There is plenty for the Italian crowd to get behind here this weekend in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Plenty of fast Italians to keep an eye on this weekend. And as the crowd continues to build. You see the paddock very much open to our spectators, and we love coming here to Vallelunga, the American Festival of Rome, building at a rate of knots, just as other events such as the Valencia NASCAR Fest and American Speed Fest have done as well. We look over the Autodromo di Vallelunga, and we will soon bid you adieu for this session or this broadcast. As you can see, as we've already mentioned, 20 past 1 will be when we go live in Central European time for round 5 of the EuroNASCAR Pro season. At 4:40, we have the EuroNASCAR 2 broadcast beginning as well. So 2 races to come today, 2 races to come tomorrow. It's all racing action from here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. And the EuroNASCAR Pro race will begin with Gianmarco Ercoli on pole. Can he extend his championship lead going into round 5 of the season? We'll find out in just a few hours' time.
Hoćemo ugasiti kameru zbog sunca ili ostavljamo?